Hola, welcome to the reading of A Metaphysical Interpretation of the Bible by Stephen L. Harefield. This is part 2 of Genesis. We are starting on page 75, the second paragraph. During the time of Noah, we shifted from physical back to spiritual. This change will be coming again, possibly in our times, and guide us toward the spiritual self that we just described. The Bible indicates that fact, which will be discussed later. Today, all we have to do is look around us, and we will see the rise in interest for the spiritual nature. It is growing at a faster rate than the boom of the technology fields in the 1970s. We will see the rise in curiosity for the intuitive senses of self, and those are already beginning to show in society. These changes may be nearer to us than we care to believe, for as Jesus said, it will come like a thief in the night. During these periods of alternate development, the Bible depicted the changes to which we were subjected each time a shift occurred. Many ancient texts talked about this period of the flood, as previously mentioned. No one alive today has been affected by this type of experience, so we do not understand the metaphor or accept it for what it truly is. We see much alteration in the way we lived life after Noah. However, if we carefully read and scrutinize the text, we will discover that from the point of the flood until today, we have been increasingly seeped in the physical aspect of life. Sorry, the whole book almost fell. We can see this growth period throughout the Old Testament. Now the pendulum has begun to swing in the other direction, and our technology will not assist us during this shift. The 40 days period mentioned in the Bible is merely the adjustment period through which we will have to travel. In this situation, we will have to either adjust or perish. It is foretold in the book of Revelation, the book that is about awakening to the spirit self and recognition of what is occurring within us. It is also believed that the Bible tells us how to work with this shift, and it is hidden in the metaphors and symbolism. It is perceived that when it happens, these will make more sense than the material explanations that have been rendered to this point in time. If polar opposites are necessary for us to live an external sense, it must also take place on the inner level, as the rule of polar opposites is within us as well and extends to all things of life. We must experience this shift to continue our growth. After all, is not growth what occurs within and not just in the physical sense? We usually grow most efficiently when we are confronted with our opposites, or the reflection of what we already are. Is this not the reason for opposition in life? It assists us to increase the level of our understanding concerning the way things are and what they can be. The biblical flood was not one of water, but rather one of spiritual inundation. It was a shift being recorded as a roadmap guiding us to a new way of life. We may see another suggestion of this very same thought in Joshua 24, 2-3. And Joshua said unto all the people, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood river in old time, even Terah the father of Nachor, and they served other gods. 3. And I took your father Abraham from the other side of the flood river, and led them throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his seed, and gave him Isaac. Depending on the version you may be reading, you will find the word river where flood is used. Older Bibles use flood. Newer ones use river. If we were to read it as river, it makes sense only if we apply it to the physical. If the word flood is used, it gives greater spiritual meaning, providing we accept the concept that water signifies the spiritual nature of life. 2 questions arise. First, why was the word changed? Second, was it meant by the other side of the flood? Abraham, a descendant of Noah, was spared, Joshua 24:3, so as to be an observer of or witness to the events to come, and to be a further confirmation of the shifting of spiritual nature, as well as a possible shift of the poles. Did Noah really build the ark, this ship of great dimensions? To this day, no one really knows for sure. The ark is truly intended as a symbol of physical life and not necessarily a ship. It was a vessel of preservation and protection for Noah and his family. In reality, the ark is the physical body. Of course, this lends itself to the question of the clean beasts of the entire world being brought on board by sevens, and the unclean beast by 2, male and female, in both cases, Genesis 7:2-3. Let us ponder for a moment about the monumental size this ship would have had to be to carry every living thing in sevens and in pairs, with enough feed to sustain life for an indefinite period of time in that region where it was to be erected. Was there sufficient lumber to create such a gigantic board? Could this not lead one toward a different understanding of logic and mental definition? Could this not be the memories of the animals or definitions, since spirit also knew we would be returning to the physical at the next looming shift? Could this not also mean that we have to house the memory of the physical, so that the next time the shift occurred, all of it would be brought back along with us? We would need these for all life to continue, and these memories would produce the animals also, for all things shift as a natural function of electromagnetic fields. We must acknowledge that the physical reality is truly here for our benefit. We are the ones that expand it, because as we grow, so does life. The story of the flood relates how the body was buffeted by the changes. It tells us how very little in this world survived this period in history. In the physical sense of the word, it has also verified the story of Moses and his 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. Those that were prepared, who had the ability to focus, were saved. In the New Testament, Jesus reminds us that we must be prepared at all times. Watch therefore, ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. Matthew 24:42. 1 Theologians 5:2 tells us, For yourselves know perfectly that day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. Both the Old and the New Testaments warns us of this potential situation. If we're able to focus, our bodies are all that we will need, since they are the temples that house God. As referenced in Revelation 1:6, through focus, we will maintain our consciousness and not the body, at least as we understand it. The body must shift well to a finer aspect, and that will be its transformation. Much like the butterfly after it rises out of the cocoon. It is similarly mentioned in the Ark of the Covenant and symbolizes the agreement we have between the physical self and that of the spirit. There is much power in this union, to which we, as people, have chosen not to adhere. Even though we accept the agreement subconsciously, we have shown a tendency to deny the influence of spirit or God to execute his concept without the guidance of the Creator. This subject will be covered more thoroughly in another chapter. Genesis 11:6-9. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. 7. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. 9. Therefore it is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did here confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Obviously, in our arrogance, we were not working in union with spirit, but rather independently. I have to ask, would a loving God do this? No, I do not think so. Following the flood, we ascertained that we were strongly believing in our spiritual nature, but only through a physical mentality, logic, and self, in a literal intellectual way. This belief did not teach the inner self, as was the intervention of the last shift of consciousness. I'm sorry. Let me go back to that. This belief did not teach the inner self, as was the intention of the last shift of consciousness. We were building our lives on the falsehood of the physical, and anything built on falsehood will not last. After all, we built our lives out of the slime and bricks, as the Bible so states, out of illusions, and it will not withstand the test of time. As a people, we are never physically great, except in our own minds. We would come to a time when we would live by our technology and through the material sense of things, without incorporating the spiritual values of life and self. We have not reached that stage. We are the ones that are separated on our own spiritual nature from our physical, through greed and deceit, and we continue this behavior today. We are traveling a path pointing the way to becoming one people as we should be, since no one is better than anyone else. We need no proof to know that we are all equal, because we are all here at God's choosing. Our burden is to follow the road to spiritual nature through trust and love of God, self, and each other. When one considers our contemporary lifestyle, it appears that we have chosen a very arduous route. We have adopted the use of differences and turmoil to release the old value system, thus adding to the difficulties in achieving oneness with all life. It is the road of inequality, and we are not talking of money or material means making any individual better than all else. In our own stumbling ways, we are showing the path of spiritual equality as we journey toward consciousness and wholeness. We see this concept carried even further in the story of Sodom. We see Abram pleading with God to not destroy a city, an aggregation of life. In this important segment of the Bible, we can deepen the significance of what is being said. Abram is pleading with spirit about the growth of life, a life to which he himself wanted to hold on. In his mind, it brought him a great deal of joy. Simultaneously, this very same life, as known in those days, was holding him in place, as his focus was on his material side rather than his spiritual side. In his fairness and wisdom, God told him that if he could locate extenuating elements within the walls of the city, it would be saved. We know through the Bible that nothing worth saving was found. Genesis 19:24 through 26. Again, the reference of Sodom is to remind us how physical nature will dominate life, and that within its concept, it does not contain real salvation. It is not permanent, and that which is not permanent cannot last. God communicated to Abram that all things of physical nature could not lead to understanding except through the experience. This is why we cannot afford to avoid them. In order to learn the lesson that will assist us in overcoming life and attain the spiritual reality we seek. When considered, one can easily see that understanding indeed is an internal function. We only comprehend the external and its relationship to us. Yet, we could learn much from the external if used as the teacher, as it does expand the inner nature through experience but not judgment. Hence, the real message is suggestion in the use of external to appreciate the internal nature of self. Unfortunately, we are too busy believing that all things are attracting us, that life is in control. It is all external. What this is the truth is to be... Wait, you guys, be patient with me. We're already at 15. Reading nonstop. It's a challenge, but I can do this. I got it. I got y'all. I got this. While this is the truth, it is so because our physically oriented mindset has allowed it to be, and we pay little or no attention to the first cause. It is accepted that this perception is the downfall of most of us, since we are seldom attacked, except by our own inner enemy. Were we to ponder on this subject, we would find that it is merely a test of our knowledge. Growth occurs after these tests. We experience what could be called a shake-up from within, and the old values must be released to allow for the new. We fail miserably with the release aspect. After all, we still have the memory of the event, which could give it greater conception of Jesus' statement in 2:22. And no man putteth new wine in old bottles. Rather than focusing on present events, we do so on the memory, using the eyes of yesterday. The present events assist us in growth, not memory. This is well depicted in Genesis 19:26. But his wife, Lot's wife, looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. This happened after being given specific instructions not to do that. What is meant in this verse is all so simple. We can conclude that anytime we look back at what was, we become frozen in time, and it holds us in place in that particular area of life. We all long for the past because we see happier days, or we see the opportunity to right a wrong. Marianne Williamson states it best with this idea. Forgiveness is giving all hope of a better past. Going back in time is not necessarily possible. It stands to reason that we must accomplish our work during the best time, and that time can only be now. That is in this moment we have, or the present. I'm going to read that one again. It stands to reason that we must accomplish our work during the best time, and that time can only be now. That is, in the moment we have, or the present. No one should be looking back. To look at it in a physiological sense, the eyes are in front of our body so we can gaze forward, and the body is designed to travel the very same direction, to operate with ease. We merely travel this way. To operate with ease, we merely travel this way mentally at all times. It takes more effort to do it in any other way. Conclusively, if you want to tear yourself away from that frozen moment in time, you must look forward. No matter how eloquently you may plead, now is the only opportunity you will have to do the work. That's it. That was a good one. Our ability to think for ourselves is becoming increasingly difficult. We depend too much on our physical nature for relief. When we should rely on our inner nature to do the same. Case in point, who takes the time to meditate? Actually, very few do. And we do not lack excuses such as, I don't have time right now, or I'm too busy. As always, we are not looking for the answers within. Rather, we seek them without. Meditation was the original form of prayer, a time when we go within for clarity and clarification. Instead, we go to the external. This will be emphasized when we get to the messages of the Master in the 4 Gospels. It is offered because he was very clear in his statements to us. Only if we perceive rather than just read and intellectualize them for the physical mind alone. We must read from a spiritual point, not a religious aspect, for the true meaning of the message will be lost, as he so stated. The Old Testament describes many events. We learn about the many wars and struggles of old, all referring to inner struggles that we affect. No way, Jose. No way, Jose. No way, Jose, am I going to do another 20 minutes and not get this right. You guys are with me, right? We're patient. We can get through this, right? Let me see. Let me just take a second. I'll take a breather so I can see how much we have left. Yeah. It's only 3 pages left. Yes, we can do this. Take a breath. All right. The Old Testament describes many events. We learn about the many wars and struggles of old, all referring to the inner struggles that will affect life in general. We see that the crossing portrayed in Exodus is that journey from the spiritual to the physical, and it is a record of the third shift. Moses was the leader during that period of time. It was a difficult task, given the fact that he was to guide his people to the promised land. Were we to study this metaphor more closely, we could also envision a different understanding of the subject. It took Moses some 14,600 days to make a journey of approximately 250 miles. This would have meant an advance of some 90 feet per day had they traveled in a straight line from Egypt to Israel. In that case, how long would one follow such a leader? Obviously not many. The 40 years are considered as the journey of life. The first 10 years are the physical development, or learning how to operate the physical form. During the second 10 years, one learns the mind and the thought process. The third segment concentrates on the emotional involvement, and the third is learning to have them operate in union. Thus, 40 years in the wilderness. We might add that there are many differences to Moses' Odyssey and other religions. In India, it was Manu. In Egypt, it was Manes. And in Crete, it was Minos. All are texts pertaining to the same person with a similar trek, namely to assist in the return to the growth of the physical nature. We can safely say that this journey continues today. We are still meandering in the same wilderness, or is it meandering? We're still meandering in the same wilderness as each and every birth occurs, in spite of all that we have achieved. Perhaps it is because we still worship an external God, not the true internal one that is there for us in the idea presented as the Ark of the Covenant. In the journey depicted above, we have once again forgotten our higher self. This occurs each time we choose to follow the path of the physical. The portrayal of this biblical struggle paints the attempt to recover from the last shift and the last birth, while being able to operate in the physical world on a better scale. When you think about it, how could a group of people that large wander about for a period of 40 years without finding a place to settle? In those days, there were a lot of very fertile areas in the Middle East ready to accommodate a large settlement. Genesis 13:10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zor. It seems that Egypt was an ideally fertile region. Further, the 10 Commandments were brought forth as laws to guide our lives. Incidentally, were we ever to follow these simple guidelines, the world would be a much different place in which to live, and it would bring us to a changed level of being. We were still attempting to work with the aspect of being physical or evil, as the metaphor indicates. We were not incorporating the spiritual, a union intended in the original agreement carefully preserved in the Ark of the Covenant. The contents of such agreement are actually in Hebrew 8:8 through 12. 8:8 through 12. In Hebrew 9:4. We have a description of the Ark, but it is not the box that one might envision, as the early religions might have depicted. Sorry, y'all, I lost my place. Where am I? It's not a box that one might envision, as the early religious minds have depicted. It is greater than that. It is not just a material object. It is us. Once we have reached, you know what? No, I'm not going to do you guys like that. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take my time and I'm going to read the beginning of this paragraph because it's very important. We were not incorporating the spiritual, a union intended in the original agreement carefully preserved in the Ark of the Covenant. The contents of such agreement are actually in Hebrews 8 through 12, in Hebrew 9:4. We have a description of the Ark, but it is not the box that one might envision, as the early religion's minds have depicted. It is greater than that. It is not just a material object. It is us. Once we have reached a higher level of attainment within ourselves. The verse reads, which had the golden censer, and the ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod was that budded, and the tables of covenant. God refers to knowledge attained from spirit about life, thus the incense on the golden altar. The golden sides represent inner knowledge balanced with the outer. The golden jar is the energy of God held within our heart, and with that only, all things will come to fruition as the building of Aaron's staff. The belief within you will give you that for which you search, and that spirit will bless it for you, for it has already been given. We may reach a better understanding of the ark if we study Hebrews 8 through 11. We get an outline of what this covenant means. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days cometh, said the Lord, when I make a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah. 9. Not according to the covenant that I made for their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, physical, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. 10. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. 11. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. Here we see a great deal of truth about God. He says he put the laws in our minds and he wrote them upon our hearts to give us the knowledge we need for life, the inner nature of self. Here we also see something that Jesus states later in the book of Matthew. We will all know and need not tell others at all. We need not teach others about God or spirit, for each and every one of us will know within our own selves. It appears to imply that a shift of consciousness is still to come again upon our physical form. The teachings are as personal as individuals themselves are. In that time, no one will have to explain any of it. We will not have to see it in another's light, as we will know it for ourselves, for the experience of it, and in our own light, meaning knowledge. Gotcha. That was a good one. The only other mention of the ark can be found in Revelations 11:19. And the temple of God was open in heaven, and there was seen in the temple the ark of this testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and earthquake and great hail. Well, this should be interesting to most, since these natural events are taking place even while we are writing this book. Jesus mentioned these occurrences in Matthew 13 when he said, For in such days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be, and the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. Again, the physical aspect is not the issue. Our reality is being shaken to allow for new systems of understandings to take hold. It is the inner nature of self-awakening to the very concepts that are being exposed, and there is nothing anyone can do about it except go with it, accept and not accept, accept and not expect. Our reality is being shaken to allow for new systems of understanding to take hold. It is the inner nature of self-awakening to the very concepts that are being exposed, and there is nothing anyone can do about it except go with it, accept and not expect. Only those that have an understanding of what this entails will be able to use it. Ache, ache. I read it twice for a reason. I know y'all feel that. Jesus said, "Let those with ears hear." That means that not everyone is going to understand. But even if we all did, the Bible also says that many will be called, yet few will come. This is a direct indication of what will happen during a period of transformation. In fact, the new covenant is about things changing to a new level of understanding, a new dispensation. The Old and New Testaments give us this very same warning in a variety of places. Eternal hail? No, not likely, except to say that we will be bombarded with new forms of thought. There will be sounds and quiet, and quite a real shakeup will take place in the inner nature. What we have considered as real will be found to be false. This will occur because we only believe in the physical aspect, and there will be no foundation for it in the future to come. The next swing will be the journey back to more of a spiritual nature, and logic alone will not work. One must be ready in this arena as to recognize the signs of self. After all, do we not think we all know ourselves better than anyone else? Knowing ourselves is the key to Christendom and the concept of consciousness anyway. We focus on looking outside, spending too much time believing we know everyone else, forgetting that looking inside is more important than all else. It is there that we find the true meaning of the idea of God, as in the kingdom is within you. We will leave the concept of creation for now and journey toward the New Testament so that we may learn to understand the messages of the Master. Even he told us that we may be like him and that we may learn to be the cause of life and not its effect. The entire Bible is on the subject of spiritual attainment rather than external religious knowledge. This is why we should not worship idols or anything outside of us. As mentioned, we have been taught about God that is located somewhere geographically, and it is not. That is an illusion. This type of worship is another message advising us to give the external world advising us not to give the external world so much importance or control over us. After all, Jesus told us that fundamentally what we do here is laying upon ourselves. After all, Jesus told us that fundamentally what we do here is laying up for ourselves in heaven. He did not specify heaven or hell. He simply stated heaven. In that there is only one place and not two, as we have been taught. This should automatically tell all readers that the physical self is not the most important thing in life. The Bible was and is a wonderful roadmap of life for us to follow. Others have gone before us and have attempted to leave directions so that all may attain their goals, not just the few who control the information. This same controlling people will tell us that we will be devoured by Satan for even considering the possibilities of other messages hidden within the pages of the Bible. Creation was a necessary aspect to make the Bible workable, and so much was left out, as indicated in the first chapter. These omissions must be the very reason that the churches, for the most part, will tell you that any other teaching is wrong. How can this be possible when it is all of God's creation, and all are different aspects of the same thing? There's only one God and one Spirit, by whatever name you may call it. For one to be right and the other to be wrong is fear of loss and judgment being placed by the religious minds of our world as they grow wealthy by the day. This next chapter will concentrate on the book of Isaiah as it sets up the New Testament. Further, we will cover the 18 missing years of Jesus' life, as most of us do not fully realize that he was taught all he knew. The book of John does furnish some hints in this matter. He had traveled to different regions of the then known world to learn from the ancient masters, all of which sponsored by the 3 wise men. He went to attain the wisdom of life, and for the most part, it is the very reason why the Bible does not contain this information. If he was taught, what value would religion have, since we could all learn this knowledge and become what he was? Hence, it was removed or hidden from us. He left us a trail to follow and ways to institute what he was showing us about our very own nature, the nature of self, working with the divine mind, the creative principle. We will offer what was discovered in my own personal search for the truth, along with others who journeyed to the very same lands to seek the wisdom of ages. This knowledge is still available today for those who are willing to search for it. This means that we must earnestly look for such truth rather than just rely on books. Sometimes we may have to travel far and wide and not sit at home to view only what is on the internet or the television screen. In so doing, one absorbs solely what the producers have chosen to shape for their advantage, generally to the detriment of the truth. In the biblical text foretold that being misled would happen, and so it is. It is asked that you read with an open mind and heart. Consider the possibilities of what we could become should we know the real truth. The Bible also confirms that God is us. We are told this twice, once by the Creator and the other by Jesus himself. Be open unto your own being, for the true grace of Spirit will be before you. Some of the information will surprise and even shock you. It will shake the foundation of your belief system. In the book of John, we are told that all will be made clear, and so it shall. Of course, the most asked question is, what is the truth? We may never know, but by the same token, things will become clearer so that we can work with them and fully absorb the value of their inner message. The truth will show itself within the real kingdom of life, the human form. It will show itself only to those that seek the messages. The house that God built is not of wood or bricks. It is inside you. Consider this. Does religion truly wish the return of the Christ? If he does return on earth, will he be pleased at what he sees? No one knows for sure until that time comes. We all know there are things that are hidden from us merely by the way the Bible is written. The omissions hide the truth, but if we were to discover it, could it not change our very lives for the betterment of all? It would offer a greater reliance on the spiritual side because our eyes would be open and we would only truly see greater things. It would be so, for the mystery would be removed for all to behold. The following chapters will expose why Christ came to fulfill the prophecies of Isaiah. They will give you a glimpse of the one known as the Christ, and according to Isaiah, the one to come bringing redemption. We will discuss Jesus and Mary Magdalene's relationship and why it was the physical representation of the creative principle. To know that he was taught is a revelation unto itself. As have others, I have confirmed this for myself. I listened to biblical advice. Knock and the door shall be opened. Ask and ye shall receive. If these two ideas were not put to the test, neither would be of any value, would they? We will discover the messages of the Master through the words of our four main Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. First, however, we must understand the words of the ancient Master Isaiah that led us to the Gospel of the New Testament as we know it to be. We will also explore the experience of the book of Revelation, a book that informs us of the unfolding of the soul and spirit, what we may anticipate by working with the true nature of life, thus enlightening the soul housed within us. And that's the end of this chapter. And I thank you all so much for being patient with me. And I hope that it was easy for you to get through. Look, we got about 700 pages left. And I expect, even though we should not expect, but I do expect that the reading will be smoother and flow better and easier for everyone to understand as they are experiencing this flow. And that's one of the messages that came when I was mid through this. In the 20 minutes, I was thinking, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to do it again. And, because I wanted it to be perfect, right? We always want things to be perfect. Oh, people are going to be listening to this. And, I don't want to stumble. I want it to be perfect. And it was just such a lesson that was coming through. And as I'm reading, I'm getting messages. And then I got to go back to, pay attention. So it's like they're giving me information as the words are coming out of my mouth as I'm reading it. And so it's just a real interesting experience to read the context of this book in this manner and share it with you in this way. So I hope that you do appreciate the errors. They are part of life. And, this is obviously a lesson in me accepting my own imperfections and being okay with it. And knowing that the important things, as I tell you guys, is you absolutely must have your own copy of this book, be it by PDF or be it by, just having your own physical book. I recommend the physical book because there's nothing like putting your eyes on it and flicking the pages and being able to highlight things and, just having it in your hands and knowing that no matter what happens to the internet, to computers and digital devices, you could still have something, to look at for guidance. And it's just been a really interesting read for me because, my spirit is very I'm very careful with the things that I absorb and the things that I read and the things that are outside of myself. So I look for this experience to be flowing from within and for me to connect to the things that are for me to connect to. And I don't forget for a second that as I'm reading this, I am in the bubble of Dr. Stephen L. Harefield. I am, in his perception of everything. And it is up to me to, create my own perception from this information that I'm receiving. And a lot of it just resonates. A lot of it feels like it is just so from me. And that's what keeps me reading it. And that's what keeps me, interested in it because I connect to it on a deeper level than the words that are popping out on the paper. And I know that beyond this physical book, I have this truth inside of me. And I truly believe that, and I believe that always. And so now to get this confirmation is just like, man, really, I'm popping my collar at my discernment and my ability to keep moving forward in the things that I believe and to be, gifted with a confirmation like this is just icing on the cake because my guides, my ancestors, my spiritual team, my God, my Lord, my Jesus, my Buddha, my Kuan Yin, my Oshun, my Elegua, my Hobatala, my everything, because we are everything. It's always been in me and I've always trusted it. So it's just been, an exploration of things that have been just hidden deep inside me. And it's always been there. And to be able to access it at a whim is the most magnificent feeling. And I am grateful. I am truly grateful. Getting ready for our session tonight. And we're going to be discussing the world today. The world in our minds. What are we creating? What is happening now? What is happening now? And so we're going to be getting into that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this now so that I can get ready for later. I'll see you guys tonight. Love you all. Ache, ache, ache. Gracias, gracias, gracias. Adios.